My name is Elowin, and I graduated with a degree in systems engineering from a private university in Austin, with a focus on programming. While most of my classmates were desperately searching for any job after graduation, I already had mine secured since my junior year. During a summer internship at a mid-sized software company called Softtech Solutions, they liked my work so much that they offered me a full-time contract as soon as I finished university. The salary was quite good, enough that I could have moved into a modest studio apartment by myself from the first month. That had been my dream for years, but I didn't go. One night, while we were having dinner at the dining table, my mom looked at me with an expression that mixed affection and worry. Dad sat beside her with his shoulders slightly slumped, as if carrying something he didn't know how to tell me. Mom took a deep breath before speaking. "Elowin, honey," she said softly, moving her fork around the plate, without looking directly at me. Dad nodded silently, a little embarrassed, as if he were being scolded inside. I blinked, confused, because I had always thought they would be the first ones to want the house just for the two of them. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to sound relaxed. "I thought you'd be happy finally having the house to yourselves." Dad cleared his throat, adjusted his glasses, and finally spoke. "Look, kiddo, the truth is we're already struggling to keep up with all the bills," he murmured, staring at the tablecloth instead of me. "Your mom and I aren't getting any younger and everything keeps going up. Electricity, water, taxes, even the simplest groceries." Mom interrupted quickly as if afraid I would say no. "If you stay a little longer," she added, "and help us a bit with the household expenses, it would really be a huge relief for us." I looked at both of them. These were the people who had raised me, who had gone into debt to pay for my private university because they wanted me to have more opportunities. I had dreamed for years of my own place, my own things, my quiet space, but facing those worried faces, I couldn't say no. "How much would I really be helping?" I asked, feeling a knot in my stomach. The relief was immediate. It showed on their faces and even in their posture. "I don't know, maybe $1,000 a month," Dad said cautiously, as if afraid I would get up from the table and run. I just nodded, and so at 22 years old I became the main provider for my parents. I contributed those $1,000 every month, and with the rest of my salary the first thing I did was send it to a savings account. I liked watching it grow little by little, month after month, like a safety net that no one knew about. I spent almost nothing on myself, just the basics, transportation, some clothes once in a while, and ice cream on weekends. Very occasionally I allowed myself a small treat. I saw no point in throwing money away. My older sister, Brielle, had a completely different philosophy about money. She was 7 years older than me. She had married her college sweetheart, Declan, and they had a 7-year-old son named Finn. They lived in a rented apartment on the other side of the city, in a modern building with a doorman, pool, and gym. As if they were millionaires, they lived like they were swimming in cash, even though in reality they barely made it to the end of the month. We all knew that. One Sunday, like many others, Brielle came to visit our parents' house. She dropped onto the living room sofa with her phone in her hand, while Declan and my dad watched a football game on TV, and my mum played with Finn on the floor. I was pouring myself a coffee when she looked up at me. "Oh my God, Elowin, are you seriously wearing that shirt again?" she said with that mix of mockery and indignation she specialized in. I looked at my simple blue shirt. "What's wrong with it?" I asked, genuinely not understanding her drama. Brielle rolled her eyes dramatically. "I saw that same shirt in a photo you posted on Facebook last year," she said, as if she had uncovered a crime. "You never buy new clothes." The new collection from that designer came out weeks ago. I took a deep breath so I wouldn't get hooked. "I don't need new clothes. This one is fine," I replied, trying to keep my voice neutral. Brielle clicked her tongue. "That's why you're still single," she muttered, shaking her head. "No man wants a woman who looks like she shops at thrift stores." I bit my tongue so I wouldn't say what I was thinking. While I had a savings account that kept growing, she and Declan lived paycheck to paycheck, even though he earned well at his job. Brielle worked part-time at a boutique in the mall, not because they needed that income according to her, but because she got bored at home. But between the two of them, the money went on restaurant outings, short trips, clothes, toys for Finn, and anything they felt like that week. Later that same Sunday, she found me alone in the kitchen washing the lunch dishes. This time her voice sounded different, softer, almost sweet. That was always a bad sign. "Elowin, can you lend me $200? She asked, tilting her head. "There's a dress I've had my eye on for days, and this month I came up a little short." I sighed inwardly. It wasn't the first time, and I knew it wouldn't be the last. "Okay," I said, drawing my hands with the kitchen towel. "I'll transfer it right now." Brielle gave me a quick hug. "You're the best sister in the world," she said. "I'm your only sister," I replied, but she was already back with her phone in her hand, probably texting someone that she could finally buy the dress. When I wasn't at my day job at Softtech Solutions, I spent most nights in front of the computer in my room working on a personal project. It was a home security app that I believed could completely change the way people monitored their houses. The idea was that it would integrate with existing cameras, but add smart alerts and easier-to-use controls. Something I didn't see in what was on the market. I was obsessed with it. I liked feeling that I was building something of my own. One night, almost midnight, my mum appeared at my bedroom door in her bathrobe with a tired face. "Elowen, go to sleep, honey," she complained. "You're going to ruin your eyesight and you're using up a ton of electricity with that computer on so late." "I'm almost done, Mom," I said without taking my eyes off the screen. As she walked away, I heard my dad in a low voice in the hallway. "That girl spends all her time playing those silly games," he muttered. "How is she ever going to get a boyfriend?" I swallowed hard but kept writing code. I didn't bother correcting them. They weren't going to understand what I was doing and I didn't have the energy to explain. Sometimes it was easier to let people believe what they wanted to believe. What I didn't know was that this quiet life of saving silently and programming secretly at night was about to turn completely upside down. The first warning that something was wrong came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was coming back from the office, tired, thinking only about a shower and working on my project for a while. As I turned the corner, I saw the front of my parents' house full of cars parked haphazardly. The door was open, propped with a large box. I went in and found absolute chaos. The living room was full of stacked boxes, open suitcases, bags, clothing bags, even a lamp wrapped in a blanket. Brielle was in the middle of the mess, giving orders to my parents as if they were moving company employees. "What's going on here?" I asked, standing still in the entrance with my backpack still hanging from my shoulder. "Are you moving or what?" Declan appeared down the hallway with a wrinkled shirt, a tired face, and slumped shoulders. I had never seen him like that. His usual posture was confident, almost arrogant. "Declan lost his job," Brielle announced before he could open his mouth. "Can you believe how unfair they were to him? His own friend betrayed him." I looked at him. "What happened?" I asked, hoping he would tell me. He avoided my gaze. "It's complicated," he muttered. Brielle intervened as always. "At the company they said it was creative accounting," she said, making air quotes with her fingers. "He was just borrowing a little money from the company. He was going to pay it back. The director, who was supposedly his friend, found out in an audit and went crazy." "You mean he was stealing?" I asked slowly. Silence filled the room. My parents looked at each other uncomfortably. Brielle looked at me as if I had insulted her. "What a horrible thing to say," she snapped. "His friend asked him to return the money and resign. That's not fair. A friend doesn't do that." "Asking him to resign and return the money sounds pretty reasonable," I started to say. But Brielle interrupted, raising her voice. "Friends understand when someone is in a tight spot," she exclaimed. "They don't stab you in the back." I dropped the subject. It was clear logic wasn't welcome in that conversation. I stayed watching as my sister took over my parents' house as if it were hers, putting boxes wherever she wanted, sitting thin on the sofa and telling my mom what to put away and where. That night, while we were having dinner, my mom officially announced what was already obvious. "Brielle, Declan, and the boy are going to stay here for a while until they get back on their feet," she said, serving more food to Finn. I nodded silently, and inside I started preparing for what I knew was coming. A nightmare was coming, and I wasn't wrong. My orderly and relatively quiet life fell apart almost immediately with the arrival of Brielle's family. Declan found a new job in just 2 weeks, but he complained all the time out loud that they paid him half of what he earned before. He repeated it every chance he got, like a mantra. Brielle continued her part-time job at the boutique, only the minimum hours, so she could say she was also contributing, although in practice she hardly helped with expenses at all. One night we were all having dinner on the baked chicken my mom had prepared with what was in the fridge. Brielle took 2 bites, made a face, and pushed the plate forward. "This chicken is so dry," she complained without even looking at my mom. "Mom, don't you know how to use seasoning? Before we used to eat at that fancy Italian place every Thursday and the food was 1,000 times better." My mom didn't defend herself. She didn't say that if she missed the restaurant so much she could cook. She just lowered her gaze. "Sorry, honey," she said in a small voice. "Next time I'll make it different." I kept eating. The chicken was fine. The dynamic in the house had changed brutally, from one moment to the next. Brielle seemed to be the center of everyone's attention and concern. Her problems were the family's problems. Her complaints became urgent matters that had to be solved immediately, and I was there in the corner working, paying bills, but invisible. I was the ATM. One night I was focused on my security app reviewing an algorithm when Brielle entered my room without knocking. She sat on the bed as if it were her house. "I need you to lend me $300, she said without preamble. This time she didn't even try to sound sweet. "Finn needs new shoes for school, and we want to take him to the amusement park this weekend. He's been really sad since we moved here." "Declan hasn't gotten his paycheck yet," I asked without taking my eyes off the screen. "We have other expenses," she answered, annoyed. "Are you going to help or not?" I gave in that time. I made the transfer knowing that money wasn't coming back, but when a week later she asked for money again, something inside me started to really get tired. This time she did it right in the middle of dinner in front of everyone with a confident smile. She was sure I wouldn't dare say no in front of my parents. She was wrong. "Brielle, have you thought about working full-time?" I asked while setting my glass on the table. I saw a sign in the boutique window. "They're hiring." Her face turned red instantly. "I can't believe how cruel you are," she said, raising her voice. "You know I have to be available for Finn when he gets out of school." "But Mom and Dad are here all day," I replied calmly. "They can watch him for a couple of hours while you work more." "That's not the point," she shouted, throwing the napkin on the plate and standing up abruptly. "What kind of sister are you?" Declan stood up behind her, giving me a dirty look before following her. My mom shook her head. "Eloan, how can you say that?" she murmured. "Your sister is going through a very difficult time." "We're all going through a difficult time," I whispered. But no one heard me. Brielle didn't speak to me for the entire following week. For me, it was a break. I used that silence to finish my security app. After months of late nights and weekends glued to my keyboard, it was finally ready to show to someone. I felt fear and excitement at the same time. One day I asked for a meeting with my boss, Marcus. I entered his office with my laptop in my hands and slightly sweaty palms. "I want to show you something I've been working on my own," I told him. He turned his chair toward me, interested. I connected the computer to the screen and started showing him the app. I showed him how it could integrate with regular security cameras, how it analyzed movements to distinguish between a person, a dog, or a tree branch moving. I showed him how different alerts could be set according to the time, how the interface was simple, clear, with big buttons and direct options. Marcus opened his eyes, genuinely surprised. "This is incredible," he said, almost without blinking. "The interface is super intuitive, and these algorithms, did you develop all this by yourself?" I nodded, trying not to seem too proud. "It's been my personal project for a while," I replied. Marcus leaned back in his chair and looked at me in a different way, more seriously. "Eloan, this could change the home security market," he said thoughtfully. "If this app belonged to Softtech, we could position ourselves really high in the sector, especially with our clients in the U.S. I felt my heart racing. "I'm willing to make you an offer," he continued. "I propose buying all the rights for $500,000, and you keep a percentage of future sales. The company handles the rest." I stayed silent for a few seconds, trying not to let my face show the whirlwind I felt. $500,000, plus royalties. It was more than I had dared to imagine. "That seems fair," I managed to say, as if I negotiated amounts like that every day. Marcus smiled. We shook hands and I left his office a little dizzy. From one day to the next, I, the daughter who didn't buy new clothes to save, had become a woman with real money. But while driving back to my parents' house that afternoon, I made a clear decision. I wasn't going to tell them anything. If they found out about that money, it would go straight to Brielle's shopping, Declan's complaints, and my parents' eternal indulgence. This was my chance to break out of the circle, and I wasn't going to waste it. That same night, sitting in the car in front of the house, I called Sandra, a friend of a co-worker who was a real estate agent. "I need to find an apartment for myself as soon as possible," I told her, speaking low, still inside the vehicle. "I want to buy, not rent, something close to the office that's ready to move into." "Perfect," she replied without hesitation. "I already have a couple of options in mind. We can meet tomorrow after you get off work." When I finally entered the house, I noticed something strange. Everyone was in the living room, seated, quiet, as if they were in an important meeting. When they saw me, they stopped talking immediately. Their expressions were a very strange mix of determination, discomfort, and expectation. "Eloan, sit down, please," my mom said, patting the empty space on the sofa next to her. I sat down carefully. "What happened?" I asked. Dad cleared his throat again. "We've been reviewing the household expenses," he began, "and with 5 adults and a child living here, everything has shot up. Electricity, water, gas, groceries. You can't imagine what a growing boy eats." "What your dad means," my mom intervened, "is that we'd like to know if you could help us a little more. What you're giving us isn't enough for everything anymore." I looked around. My parents avoided my eyes, though it was clear they had hope. Brielle looked at her nails as if it had nothing to do with her. I knew deep down it had been her idea. Declan at least seemed uncomfortable. "Are Brielle and Declan contributing something to the house?" I asked, looking at them directly. My parents exchanged quick glances. "They're in a complicated situation," my mom said softly. "Meanwhile, you're single, no kids, and you have a good salary. Can you help a little more, right?" I took a deep breath and counted to 10 in my head. "How much more?" I asked. "We were thinking maybe $2,000 a month," Dad said, almost in a whisper. I wanted to laugh or cry, I wasn't sure. Instead, I just nodded. "Okay," I replied. "From this month." Brielle looked up for the first time with a small smile appearing at the corner of her lips. She felt she had won, not knowing it was temporary. 3 days later, I met Sandra at a modern residential complex about 10 minutes by car from my office, in a quiet neighborhood of Austin. The apartment she showed me was perfect. 1 bedroom, spacious living room, open kitchen, lots of light, high floor, and a small balcony with a view of the city. I used part of the money from the sale of the app to buy it in cash. I signed the papers that same day. I felt that I finally had something that was only mine. While I organized the key handover with Sandra and started looking at furniture online, at my parents' house, I started noticing something strange. During dinners, my mom, my dad, and Brielle kept exchanging weird glances all the time, as if sharing a secret. Declan hardly spoke and focused on helping Finn cut his meat. I knew they were planning something, but I couldn't guess what. The answer came faster than I imagined. 2 days later, I arrived from the office and found a bunch of my things piled up in the hallway against the wall. There were my books, clothes, a box with old notebooks, my laptop in its case, and even a childhood teddy bear crushed between 2 boxes. "What the hell?" I murmured, dropping my bag on the floor and walking straight to my room. Only it was no longer my room. Finn was sitting on my old bed, which now had superhero sheets. He was playing with a video game console at high volume. The walls where my programming certificates used to hang were now full of cartoon posters. My desk, where I had created the app that changed my life, had disappeared. In its place, they had put a small table full of crayons, notebooks, and dolls. "Aunt Aloan, look at my new room," Finn said when he saw me. "Isn't it nice?" Before I could answer, Brielle appeared at the door with her arms crossed. "Oh, you're back," she said as if she had been waiting for me. She wasn't even surprised. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm even though I felt my blood boiling. "We moved Finn in here," Brielle replied with a shrug. "He needs more space for his toys and to do homework. The other room is too small." "And where am I supposed to sleep?" I asked, staring at her. My mom appeared behind her, twisting her hands. "Elowen, honey," she said nervously, "we thought that since you're hardly ever home, always at work or stuck on that computer, it wouldn't bother you to sleep on the living room sofa for a while." I looked at my mom, then at Brielle. This time she didn't even try to hide the satisfied look on her face. "So you moved all my things without asking me," I said slowly. "We knew you'd make a drama if we asked you," Brielle answered shamelessly. "And Finn really needed the space. That room you had before is almost a closet. And why can't I use that room then?" I asked, looking at both of them. My mom and Brielle looked at each other again. "It's that," my mom started. "We thought Brielle could use it as a walk-in closet. You know how much clothes she has. There's no more room in the room with Declan." I stood looking at them, speechless for a moment. They had taken me out of the room that had been mine since I was a child, the room I was practically paying for so my sister could have a walk-in closet. My sister, who didn't contribute a single dollar to the household bills. I saw her designer clothes, her fancy shoes, my things piled in the hallway, and something inside me broke. But instead of screaming or crying, as I suppose they expected, I simply shrugged. "You know what? It's fine," I said with a calm that even surprised me. "I'm not going to sleep on the sofa because I'm not staying here." Brielle let out a little laugh. "Sure, in your imaginary apartment," she said sarcastically. "Elowen, grow up. We all know you don't have an apartment." "Yes, I do," I replied, looking her straight in the eye. "I bought it last week. I was going to tell you this weekend, but I think you just made things much easier." My mom opened her eyes as if she had just seen a ghost. "Brielle, you bought an apartment too?" my mom asked. "With what money?" "That doesn't matter now," I said, turning to go down the stairs. "What matters is that I'm leaving today." I went down to the living room and called a moving company from my phone. I asked for the first available appointment. They offered the next day at 7 a.m. I accepted immediately. Then I called the office to ask for a day off. While making the calls, I felt my family's eyes fixed on me. They were a strange mix of disbelief, worry, and contained anger. "Elowen, you can't be serious," my dad finally said, coming in from the garage. "I'm completely serious," I replied, finishing the call with the moving company. "Tomorrow at 7 they're coming for my things. We can talk," my mom insisted. "If you're upset about the room, we'll fix it. Finn can sleep with us for a while. It's not that big a deal." "It's not about the room," I interrupted her. "It's about respect, boundaries, and the fact that I pay $2,000 a month to live here. And still you treat me like I'm less important than everyone else." Brielle, who had been quiet for a few minutes, intervened. "Wait, you really bought an apartment?" she asked, frowning. "With what money? You're barely a junior developer." "I'm not going into details," I said. "I'm going to pack the rest of my things." The next day at exactly 7, the moving truck arrived. I showed the workers which boxes were mine, which furniture was going with me, and what was staying. As they carried things out, my family gathered in the living room watching everything in silence. It looked like they were witnessing something they couldn't stop. "Where is this apartment?" my dad finally asked while I checked that I wasn't leaving anything. "Close to the office," I replied without giving more details. "And how much did it cost?" Brielle blurted out, her voice loaded with a mix of curiosity and resentment. "How could you pay for it?" I turned toward them. All 4 of them were in the living room looking at me as if I were doing something absurd. "That's none of your business," I said. "Don't worry. You don't have to know everything. Not what I spend or what I save." "We're your family," my mom said in a hurt tone. "Of course it's our business. Family works both ways, Mom," I replied. "And here for a long time now, it's only gone one way." "What do you mean by that?" Brielle asked defensively. "That I'm tired of being everyone's ATM," I said. "Of giving money that's never enough, that's never appreciated, and that's never used responsibly." "So you're going to abandon us?" my mom asked with tears welling up. "What's going to happen with the bills, with the groceries?" I said Brielle and Declan are adults with jobs. It's time for them to start contributing for real. "We can barely pay our own stuff," Brielle protested. "Then maybe you should review your spending priorities," I replied. Her face turned red. "You know what?" she said. "I think you should give us your apartment. We need it more than you. We have a child." I couldn't help it. I laughed. My sister's audacity was impressive. "No, Brielle," I said, still smiling. "I'm not giving you my apartment. I'm not giving you anything else." One of the moving workers appeared at the door. "Miss, we've loaded everything. Ready to go?" "That's right," I said, grabbing my bag. "I'm ready." "Elowen, please." My mom tried one more time. "Don't leave like this. I'll call you in a few days," I replied without promising anything. "Bye." I followed the moving truck to my new apartment. With every meter we moved away from my parents' house, I felt I could breathe better. For the first time in my adult life, I was choosing myself. The following days were a mix of boxes, newly delivered furniture, and errands to set up services. I assembled the bed, organized the dishes, hung some things on the wall, left my phone off most of the time. I knew it would be full of missed calls and messages. When I finally turned it on a week later, I wasn't wrong. There were dozens of calls from my mom, voice messages from my dad, texts from Brielle that went from veiled insults to guilt phrases disguised as affection. Some said I was destroying the family, others that I couldn't be so selfish. I left them unanswered. After a week of silence, I decided to go to my parents' house one Saturday morning. I didn't want shouting or drama. I wanted to have a calm conversation about boundaries, if that was possible. When I parked in front of the house, I saw the curtains move. They were watching. As soon as I got out of the car, the door opened abruptly. My mom hugged me tightly. "It's so good you came back," she said, relieved. "We were so worried." My dad appeared behind her with a tense smile. Brielle and Declan were already seated in the living room with Finn playing on the floor. "I'm not coming back to live here," I clarified before entering. "I just came to talk." "We understand," my mom said, pulling me inside. "We've also thought a lot about all this." I doubted it, but I sat down. "Elowen," my dad began, "we know we were wrong. Your room is yours again, whenever you want." Finn went back to the small room and Brielle didn't make it a walk-in closet, he added. I can fit all my clothes in our room. Brielle intervened quickly. I don't need the extra space. I looked at all of them. I appreciate you saying that, I replied. But I'm good in my apartment. I don't want to come back to live here. We miss you, my mum said. The house isn't the same without you. We need you. What she didn't say was what floated in the air. What you need is my money, I corrected without raising my voice. No one denied it. We could reach an agreement, Brielle said. You stay living in your apartment, but you keep helping with the bills. Or even better, we move into your apartment and you stay with this house. Everyone wins. I had to hold back another laugh. No, Brielle, I said. I'm not giving you my apartment, and I'm not going to keep giving you money either. That's not fair, she exclaimed. You're too selfish. How did you buy an apartment out of nowhere? You're hiding something. You must have been saving money for years without telling us. I took a deep breath. If I wanted them to stop inventing, I had to say it. I sold an app I developed, I said. The security program I was working on at night, the one everyone thought was silly games. The silence was total. My boss bought it from me for $500,000 plus a percentage of the sales, I added. $500,000, Declan whispered, as if tasting the words was difficult. My mom put her hand on her chest. And why didn't you tell us? She asked, almost offended. Because I knew what was going to happen, I replied. You were going to find 1,000 reasons why you deserved that money more than me. That if Brielle has a child, that if the debts, that if the house, that if the car. No one contradicted me. So you're going to abandon us, Brielle said theatrically. After everything we've done for you. I stood up from the sofa and looked at all of them. What have you done for me, you and Declan, besides asking me for money you never return, criticizing my clothes, and moving my things without asking? I asked. Brielle had no answer. I'm going to keep being your daughter and your sister, I added, looking at my parents and then at Brielle in turn. That doesn't change, but I'm not going to keep being your bank. As I walked out the door, I heard behind me the usual words. Ungrateful, selfish, heartless. This time they didn't hurt. 6 months have passed since that day. I haven't spoken to them again. Every once in a while they try to contact me, but there's always money involved, disguised as reconciliation. Through acquaintances I've learned that they're still living together in the same house. They keep complaining about money and now also that I abandoned them. Nothing changed there. On the other hand, my life did change. My apartment is exactly how I want it to be. Orderly, calm, quiet. My career is going very well. At the company they respect me more since they found out about the deal for the app. Although they don't know the figures. The royalties keep coming month after month to my account. I've started traveling around Texas some weekends, getting to know places I used to only see in photos. I bought new clothes without exaggerating, things that fit me well and that I like. Brielle would hate them. I also started dating someone who values that I'm practical, that I understand numbers, that I save and plan. I told him my story, and he didn't call me selfish or ungrateful. He just told me I was brave for setting boundaries. Sometimes at night I wonder if I did the right thing. Guilt creeps in silently, like a nosy neighbor. I think about my parents, how they must feel, about the things they did for me when I was a child. Then I remember how they treated me when I started making money. I remember how they saw me more as a resource than as a person. I remember my boxes piled in the hallway, my room occupied by Finn and the other almost turned into a walk-in closet, my $2,000 monthly that was never enough. And then I see it clearly. It wasn't selfishness, I tell myself, lying in my bed, in my apartment, in my life. It was taking care of myself.